Hello and welcome to the News at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities right across Scotland. Tonight, the funeral parlour probe that's led to 70 people contacting the police.
We have a lot of good friends that we can talk to and lean on, so it's just devastating for everybody, and this is going to bring it all back.
We'll speak to one organisation helping those affected. Also tonight, the prison service admits that the death of Alan Marshall in custody was unlawful.
We've actually, after 10 years, can hear them saying they're sorry that they killed him and they breached his human rights.
And remembering the politician and flying Scotsman Sir Ming Campbell, who's died at the age of 84. We will, of course, have all of the sport for you with Lewis. Lewis, what is on the cards tonight?
Well, Sarah, it's only one of the best weekends in golf, the Ryder Cup. We'll be getting a feel for the action in New York with Team Europe off to a flying start.
Lovely stuff. And we speak to the rugby star turned swimmer who conquered the Caledonian Canal. Hello, I'm Sarah McMillan. Welcome to the News at 7. We put our trust in a funeral director when we lose someone that we love and are at our most vulnerable. You believe they'll be looked after and return the correct ashes if cremated. A lot of people also like to prepare and will plan for their own death by using a prepayment plan. Well, police investigating missing ashes at one funeral director's, A Milne in Glasgow and in Barton, say they've received reports from more than 70 people regarding practices at the firm. One officer has called their investigation unprecedented.
I firmly believe that whilst we've received in excess of 70 reports, I firmly believe that there's other people out there who have not come forward as yet, and that's concerning for myself. I would like to encourage anybody who has any concerns relating specifically to A Milne funeral directors, independent funeral directors, to please come forward, engage with us.
Well, 2 women and a 56-year-old man have been arrested and released pending further inquiries. Police say 18 lots of ashes were recovered, 5 remain unidentified. Jackie was told by police that her mum's ashes had been found at the Springburn funeral parlour months after she'd thought she'd scattered them.
They can't do DNA ashes, so because it's already been burnt, it's ash, so I just have to live with it, don't I? Just put it away with my head. As I say, it's just, but it's hard, you know what I mean, thinking, is it him, is it no him, when you think that you've got somebody to bury, well, cremate your husband, and you don't know if that's the person. The same when I thought they cremated my mum, I thought they gave me my mum back, but they've given me somebody that will never know, some family will never know who I've got, but I've scattered. Do you know what I mean?
You kind of made your mind up, it's Danny, or you could have
never settled.
I never settled. It had to be one way or another, because it was just totally upsetting.
I mean, they don't know the devastation of course people in the heart, do you know what I mean?
That was Jackie Barnes speaking to our reporter Hope Webb. Well, Debbie Adams from Victim Support Scotland joined us on this programme earlier. Her organisation has been helping some of those affected.
So Victim Support Scotland has wanted to make sure that anyone who's been impacted by this crime is able to access support, personalised support, the situation that they're in. So we're working alongside them to ensure that victims are aware of our helpline that's available 8 till 8, Monday to Friday, 10 till 4 Saturday and Sunday, but that allows us to receive a referral and we can put them in touch with our staff or volunteers who can work alongside the victims of this crime and help them in any way we can.
Is this a new area for your organisation? Because these allegations, you know, they're deeply upsetting and people will be dealing with some very complex feelings around death and grief and ultimately betrayal too. So how do you begin to navigate that?
So yeah, the feelings that people have are, you know, you will experience those for different crimes and people's feelings are different depending on the individual. So it's a new area in terms of this particular crime type and the fact that it's a group of victims, but our staff and volunteers are trained to work with where people are at and not to assume that they are feeling anything in particular, but actually really understand them and what it is that they are looking for, what support they're looking for.
And Debbie, we know that 70 people have got in contact with police about this. How many people is your organisation supporting?
So at the moment we've been waiting on formal referrals coming from the police. So at the moment we've got 9 referrals, but everyone received a letter just in the past couple of days about an update, and our information has been sort of front and centre so that people can actually get in touch and have a volunteer or a staff member to support them. And
so Debbie, just to finish us off then, what would you say to someone who might be watching this and they think that they're affected but they're not really sure about where to turn and where to get any help or advice?
So there's 2 ways. If the police have been in touch with you and you've not yet come forward, then please and you want to report the crime, then please go via the police. But if you're not sure and you just want some support or you want to test it out, then please find us on the Victims Support Scotland website, and all of our details of our helpline are there. But I would encourage people to come forward so that the police get an understanding of the magnitude of this crime and how far it stretches, but also so that we can really support people, because we would like to represent the victims' views as well. So if we understand how people are feeling and the information that they need, we can put some support together for that.
OK, Debbie, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us and talking to us about this on the programme this evening.
Thank you.
Elsewhere tonight, Alan Marshall was on remand at HMP Edinburgh when he was restrained face down by prison officers in March 2015. He died 4 days later. Today, his family received a public apology and the Scottish Prison Service admitted that his death was unlawful. Katie Hunter's report contains images that you may find upsetting.
This CCTV shows Alan Marshall being restrained, face down by prison officers. He was having a mental health crisis and needed medical help. Instead, some officers used their feet to keep him down. He died 4 days later in hospital. A decade after Alan's death, his family arrived in court hoping to hear the Scottish Prison Service, the Crown Office and the police admit their failings and apologise. They got their wish.
Accordingly, his death was unlawful for the purposes of the Human Rights Act.
The Lord Advocate similarly apologises for the failures specified in the minute.
The Chief Constable accepts that the investigation following the death of Alan Marshall fell below the required standard.
This was the first public acknowledgement in court that Alan Marshall's death was unlawful and the force used against him excessive.
It doesn't feel real. It's still like we're in a daze type of thing, that we've actually, after 10 years, can hear them saying they're sorry that they killed him and they breached his human rights. So it just doesn't feel real. It's not sunk in yet.
The family's lawyer says it should never have taken this long.
Finally, they've secured the admissions that they ought to have had, particularly from the Scottish Prison Service, immediately after Alan Marshall was killed.
The Crown Office and the police also admitted failures in their investigations. Among those failures, a decision by the Crown Office to grant the prison officers involved immunity from prosecution. The court heard this morning that amounted to an amnesty for people who might have been prosecuted. The Scottish Prison Service, the Crown Office and the police all say they've made improvements in the last 10 years. Today was a significant day for Alan Marshall's family. The court is expected to make a ruling at a later date, reflecting today's admissions.
That was Katie Hunter reporting there. Now, a dedicated public servant and true Liberal giant, those were the words used to describe the Scottish politician and Liberal Democrat Sir Ming Campbell, who's died at the age of 84. Before politics, he had a career as a sprinter, competing in the Tokyo Olympics, and earned the nickname the Flying Scotsman. As a politician, he was renowned for speaking on international issues and was a critic of the Iraq War. Our political correspondent Phil Sim spoke to the leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats, Alex Cole-Hamilton, about Ming Campbell's life. And a warning for you now that this piece does contain flashing images.
Our Liberal family is grieving today. We have lost a giant of our movement and a giant of British politics. My first political act was actually to deliver leaflets for Ming Campbell on the morning of his first election to Parliament in 1987. I was 10 years old. My dad got me up at 4 a.m. He was my mentor, he was my MP for a time, and he was my friend. We're profoundly sad today.
How big of an influence was Ming Campbell on Liberal politics?
I think it's impossible to overstate just how important Ming Campbell was for the Liberal movement, not just here at home, but internationally as well. Remember, he was respected right across the world in terms of his incisive political insight and his diplomacy. I think in large part he will be remembered as the best foreign secretary that we never had.
He was obviously a leader of the Lib Dems for a time, a relatively short period, but he had a big voice in the Commons and in the country, particularly prominent during the Iraq War.
I think that when Ming spoke, people around the country put down what they were doing and listened, particularly at times of grave international misadventure like Iraq. Ming was a solitary voice at first, I think, alongside Charles Kennedy, pointing to the calamity that Iraq would come to represent. And time again, history proved him right. You know, we are bereft of one of the strongest voices, not just for liberalism, but for international diplomacy today.
He obviously had a remarkable life before politics. You know, he went to the Olympic Games in Tokyo, a really full life lived.
It was a wonderful life lived indeed. As people know, Ming was at a certain time in his life one of the fastest people on the planet. I think that speaks to the fact that he threw everything into any enterprise in which he was involved, whether that was the legal profession, when he was a lawyer, when it was athletics as an athlete. But obviously, you know, for Liberals, it's about politics and his impact, not just on the politics of Westminster, but the politics of international global liberalism as well. He is a voice that will echo through the ages, and we will be returning to his words of wisdom for many, many years hence.
And what would you say his political legacy is going to be?
In times of great crisis for this nation, Ming was one of those sage, elder statesman voices that people would turn to and they would listen to. That is transcendent. It's very rare in politics for somebody with such an important voice to have their words listened to, not just by the media in the country, but by political opponents, and to act on his advice. I think that is a quality we don't often see in politics anymore.
The former Lib Dem leader Mingus Campbell, who's died at the age of 84. OK, it's that time in the programme now. Let's get a roundup of the stories which are making the BBC News app in Scotland today. The First Minister, John Swinney, says he's opposed to a mandatory UK digital ID scheme, calling it a Brit card. The Prime Minister says it will tackle illegal immigration. Elsewhere, a report claims most further education colleges here face unsustainable losses. The Scottish Funding Council says several could run out of money by the end of the financial year. A speeding driver who left 2 police officers badly hurt in a motorway crash on Glasgow's M8 has been jailed for 4 years. Dylan Hood drove at 134 miles per hour. And a rhino, which moved from Scotland to the Netherlands, is at the centre of a row over the movement of animals. Edinburgh Zoo says post-Brexit agreements make it practically impossible to get a replacement. Well, for more information on all of these stories, please scan that QR code, which you can see on the screen now. That takes you to the BBC Scotland News app. There is so much more there for you. OK, well, it's to the Highlands now, and a landmark agreement has been signed today, concluding a 5-year planning process to establish a green freeport in the Highlands. The freeport is aiming to become a major international hub in offshore renewables and is one of just 2 in Scotland. Our reporter Chris McClendon explains.
Well, we've been hearing a lot about green freeports, but now to find out exactly what they are, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Callum McPherson, who's the Chief Executive of the Inverness and Cromarty Firth Green Freeport. Callum, just tell us, what is a freeport?
So a freeport is a structure that is put in place to try and encourage investment and job creation. There are thousands of different types of free zones and freeports across the world, but the green freeports in Scotland are a really strongly governed, with strong oversight arrangement to try and encourage investment, not just from businesses within Scotland and the UK, but those abroad. And I'm pleased to say that it's already making good returns because we've had investment from all over the world.
What sort of things are we seeing with that investment? You know, this is obviously a big boost for the Highland area and wider. You know, what sort of projects are happening here?
So the kind of investment we've experienced so far is at a level we haven't seen since 50 years when the oil and gas boom was in the north of Scotland. We have Sumitomo Electric, who are building a £350 million cable factory, creating hundreds of jobs. There are already apprenticeships happening in the area for them, and the work is already ongoing. There's also the US investment funds have already put money into Port of Ardeshir. So again, hundreds of millions of pounds coming in to reinstate the harbour wall there back to its former glory. And the really good thing is that these investments are not ones that can be taken anywhere else. Once you've invested in a deep quayside port, it's here for generations to come. In actual fact, it's once in a multi-generation opportunity, because we fundamentally believe that if this region can be a core contributor to the whole transition to renewable energy, that these investments are going to be here for generations to come.
Well, it's been 5 years to get to this stage, which has been described as a landmark moment for this green Freeport. Thousands of jobs and billions of pounds of investment are expected over the next 25 years. Chris McLennan, reporting Scotland, Inverness.
Now, this ash tree on a busy Glasgow street has been named Tree of the Year after being nominated by the public as a wildcard entry. The Argyll Street ash was named the winner of the Woodland Trust competition on Thursday after a public vote. Other contenders included an oak that may have inspired Virginia Woolf and a lime representing peace in Northern Ireland. The author James Cowan described the tree in his 1951 book as the most graceful ash he'd ever seen. OK, well, still to come. We will have a full weather forecast for you with Christopher, and we speak to the man who's become the first ever to swim the length of the Caledonian Canal. But first, let's take a look at this evening's sport now with Lewis.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And we're going to get to the Ryder Cup in a moment, but we're starting tonight with the rugby because it is also getting up and running tonight. Glasgow Warriors assistant coach Nigel Carolan says he's keen to build the confidence of the side's younger players as their new season begins against the Sharks at Scotstoun later. Carolan says a conscious decision was made at the end of last season to make changes to the squad after the defending champions lost in last season's URC semi-finals.
At the end of the year, I think, we look at the team who won the year before and those who were on the field, there were 6 or 7 injuries, and those guys had left. Just had a massive knock-on effect. But we also feel that we're starting to bring some good young lads through, and we don't expect those guys just to hit the ground running. It does take a little bit of time.
And the Warriors opener kicks off just after 8 tonight, while Edinburgh start their URC campaign away to Zebra tomorrow. Now let's get to it, the Ryder Cup, because it has been a good start for Europe, but not such a great start for Robert's Bob McIntyre on day one of the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black in New York. The Scot was paired with Norwegian Victor Hovland against Americans Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele in today's foursomes, hoping to make it 4 from 4 for Europe in the last match of the morning session. Alas, despite drawing level with just a couple of holes to go, it wasn't to be for McIntyre, who was heckled by a vocal home crowd on some crucial putts as well. But you come to expect that and when you're away from home, don't you? And let's get over there to sample some of the atmosphere with Michael McEwen from Bunkered. Michael, you've managed to rip yourself away from what has been an incredible day so far, so thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what it's like out there. An incredible start for Europe, which we have to start with, but not quite a perfect start for Bob McIntyre, was it?
It wasn't a perfect start for Bob, no. It's a very good start for Europe, almost perfect, this close to being perfect. And I think whitewashing the US in the opening session would have been an incredible statement of intent and would have been very difficult from the US to recover from that. But yeah, that crucial point that they picked up in the last match of the session, unfortunately, against our very own Bob McIntyre, I think that's given them just a little glimmer of hope.
Yeah, we're just seeing some footage of Bob. He had opportunities, didn't he, to keep the game going. He just couldn't quite find his rhythm. But Europe certainly did find their rhythm. An incredible start in the 3 matches that preceded that. We could take a look at how those unfolded as well. But so much was said about this New York crowd, Michael, and it was silenced early on, wasn't it? But you touched on that last game there. Could that maybe be swinging the atmosphere? Tell us what it's like at the moment.
I have to say this morning I was very surprised. We'd been promised bedlam, we'd been promised chaos, we'd been promised a raucous crowd, and to be honest, it didn't materialise. I was there in the first tee at around about, 6 o'clock in the morning, so about an hour or so before play began, and it was very, very subdued, very low key. I think, and I stand to be proven wrong here, that they'll start to get behind the team now. They've maybe recognised that, okay, we're in a bit of a fight here, and the sun has come out. I think some libations have been had, and I think they're ready to throw their full weight and voices behind their team. But there's a very long way to go. The opening salvo definitely in favour of the Europeans, but I'm not counting my chickens just at this point in time.
No, absolutely. And just briefly, Michael, the President Donald Trump is there, of course. Did that really get the atmosphere kicked up a notch as well?
It certainly did, yeah. He's an incredibly popular man, it would appear, with the US Ryder Cup fans. He was there in the first tee, spent a little bit of time chatting to Bryson DeChambeau just before he teed off, and looked as if he was having quite a good time. So whether that will make any material difference or not, we shall see. But yeah, hopefully Europe can see this through.
Absolutely. Well, Michael McEwen from Bunker, I'd really appreciate your time in New York there, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you. And you can find lots more over on the BBC Sport website, including Josh Kerr's regret about finishing the World Championships 1500-metre final after pulling a calf muscle halfway through the race, in which fellow Scot Jake Whiteman secured silver. So that's the sport from me, Laura. I'm going to get back and watch more of the Ryder Cup.
Lovely stuff, Lewis. Thank you very much. Now, a former professional rugby union player has become the first person to swim the full length of the Caledonian Canal. Ian Sinclair finished the 60-mile challenge in Inverness earlier this week after swimming 6 hours a day for 8 solid days. Ian said he did it for himself, for charity, for the team behind him, and for the memory of 2 friends he held very close. I sat down with him earlier and asked him how you find hope in the hard moments.
Yeah, it certainly tested me physically. Mentally, it's pretty arduous because it's long days, it's cold water, and my friends and the team got to enjoy the scenery while I was sort of face down in the water. But yeah, it was a great experience. It really was.
So, the first man to ever swim across Scotland.
Feels pretty good when you say that. And as one of my friends reminded me yesterday, that means technically I'm the slowest person ever to swim across Scotland, but I like to think that was the fastest as well.
Were there any particularly tough moments during it?
There's many tough moments, Sarah. Day one was the longest day. I'd never swum more than 10 kilometres, and day one was 13. The second one was probably that stands out for me was in Loch Ness. Deeply frustrating. I mean, what a monster of a body of water. That was hard. That was hard physically and mentally.
And there were a number of reasons for you wanting to do this, weren't there? Tell me what those are.
Originally, it was going to be Crohn's and colitis. I'd mentioned what I was doing to my good friend Colin Maguire, and I asked him if he'd like to join me because we did an Ironman in 2015. He said thanks, but absolutely no thanks, you're on your own. And unfortunately, he passed away last year. And that then brought to the fore an opportunity to swim in Colin's memory. And we sought to raise money for the British Heart Foundation. And later on last year, we also lost another very good person, Jenny Hastings, the wife of a good friend, Scott. So Scott's been involved really from the get-go. It's just over a year since she passed, and I know this was an important project for him to focus on. And it was the same for Claire Maguire, Colin's wife as well. She herself and the boys came up to Drumnadrochit to see us, and that was a real shot in the arm.
And the Crohn's and Colitis charity is one that's of particular importance to yourself. Tell me why.
So I suffered from what's called indeterminate colitis. So ulcerative colitis is between ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. I suffered from that for a long time, much longer than I actually realised, but probably being a typical bloke, didn't do too much about it for a while. Nothing really worked, in a fulsome manner. So I ended up having surgery to remove my large intestine. I made a vow to myself and my family that every day was going to count from that point onwards. And their support has been amazing. My wife and my mum and dad, and everybody surrounding me. I've been a very, very lucky person. So I guess that opportunity to then give something back is kind of how I'm wired. It takes a bit of application, a bit of planning, a bit of determination, but it can absolutely be done. So I would say to anybody out there that is struggling or suffering, please have the courage to step forward, because to get things done, you have to start.
Well, from all of us, congratulations and good luck with whatever comes next.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much to Ian for joining us in the programme to tell us about that mammoth challenge. OK, let's take a look at the weather forecast for you now. Christopher Blanchett is here and this all looks lovely today.
Doesn't it just? I'm afraid no more sunshine tomorrow for many. Some lovely pictures once again, though, from Pittenweem in Fife to Orkney there, beautiful blue seas, and in the southwest as well. But as I said, all changed. Let me show you what's happening tomorrow. We've got a weather front moving in off the Atlantic. There it is, and it's going to bring some fairly heavy and persistent rain, chiefly to western parts. It clears through, and then beyond that, we're setting ourselves up for a battle between low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south. We'll probably see the low pressure more than the high pressure, has to be said. So tomorrow, some heavy rain. As I mentioned, a Met Office yellow warning through parts of Dumfries and Galloway, Ayrshire, in towards Argyll, Inverclyde and Loch Harbour. East of here, it's still dry first thing, bit of sunshine around, bit of cloud towards the east coast, but you can see that rain already setting in across the west coast and the Hebrides, and it will continue to work its way eastwards through the course of the day. Further north and northeast, it's a generally bright start, maybe 1 or 2 showers there in Shetland. So as we go through the course of Saturday, that rain band works its way eastwards, but it's running into high pressure, so it's not moving east particularly fast. That means if you're stuck underneath it, it's going to be pretty soggy. Tomorrow evening, that rain becoming more widespread. It will be a rather wet Saturday evening and Saturday night. For Sunday, that weather front still with us, and it's sort of wrapped around parts of the far north with some showery outbreaks of rain across parts of Caithness, Sutherland and the Northern Isles. Elsewhere, a brighter day on Sunday for the central lowlands and the south. Temperatures sort of similar, but it should feel better because you'll have more sunshine. Temperatures once again 14 or 15 Celsius. And then into next week, as I mentioned, we've got low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south, and we'll probably see the influence of low pressure and weather fronts really rather than the high pressure to the south. However, not a complete washout. Initially, first thing through the course of the week on Monday, it's dry with a bit of brightness and then cloud and a weather front trying to bring some outbreaks of rain towards the west. Temperatures mid-teens. On Tuesday, that wet weather, some weather fronts trying to work their way further south and east. You can see not particularly wet on Tuesday, but there will be some cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain, but turning far wet